And so I want to talk to us this morning briefly particularly from the Old Testament reading. And I want to talk about becoming kingdom fathers. Becoming kingdom fathers. In that passage from Genesis, we heard these words: Adam, where are you? Adam, where are you? There's never been a time when fathers have been more critical for the well-being of our society and our world as it is today. That's a fact. And by fathers, I mean the man, the male. We live in a time with a fork in the road, a time when we face chaos, confusion, lack of clarity, voices coming at us from all directions, many voices trying to redefine God's design for a healthy society. At the end of the day, it comes down to personal preferences rather than the design of the architect and builder of our faith and our world. Our worldly architects are trying to create families that do not include the man, the male, and expect society to function as a united, cohesive unit. I want to submit to us today that fathers and fatherhood is critical in order for us to have a healthy, united, dynamic society. Remove the fathers, and you are left with chaos, degradation. Remove the fathers, and you are immediately pulling apart the fabric that holds society together. And God would have me say today that God is still looking for a godly man, that God is still in search of a godly man to stand in the breach. The passage from Genesis is an interesting one, where God created all things and God said it is good. God gave to Adam very clear and decisive instructions on how to operate in the world, in Eden, to ensure that it becomes all that God created it to be. Next on the scene in chapter 3, we see another figure appearing, and the writer refers to that other figure as Satan, the serpent, who was more crafty. Notice, and I want you to watch very carefully what happened. The serpent went to Eve and shared with Eve a different narrative than the narrative that God shared with Adam. Remember, I said God told Adam how to order society, how to order the world in order for it to become all that God wanted it to become. The serpent didn't go to Adam, the serpent went to Eve. Follow me? I have heard many interpretations of this passage that have cast the blame for the fall and for the brokenness of the world on Eve. I've heard many persons indicated that Eve was a cause of the first sin. But I want you to watch very carefully and understand me that this is not a man-bashing sermon. This is a sermon that calls the man back to his place. When you read carefully in Genesis, you notice that Adam was right there when the serpent began to engage Eve. But Adam said nothing and did nothing. Come on now, follow me. Adam was right there. Read very carefully. He was right there when the serpent came to Eve and shared a different narrative about ordering life in society other than the narrative that God gave to Adam. And Adam, even though he heard the serpent with this other narrative, did not intervene, did not speak up, did not speak out, did not rebuke the devil. The Bible then tells us that Eve took and ate while Adam was there watching. And then Eve gave some to Adam, and Adam ate as well. Follow me closely. Then we are told later on in the narrative that they recognized that they were naked and they heard the sound of God. Now that's a whole different sermon. The sound of God in the garden, and they hid. They hid because they heard the sound of God. Watch it now. God comes along and God speaks. God says, Adam, follow me. They both recognized that they had sinned. They both recognized that they were naked. They both hid from God. They both heard the sound of God in the garden. But God went and God called Adam. Where are you? Why Adam? Because it was Adam that God gave instructions to. Why Adam? Because Adam is the one that God gave very specific and clear instructions to. And therefore, when God called Adam, where are you? It is not because God was unmindful. It is not because God did not know where Adam was, but God called Adam, where are you? So that Adam will recognize that he was not in the place where God placed him and expected him to be. Are you following me, church? And so God went to Adam. Where are you? So that Adam will recognize that he's not in his rightful place. God has forever been calling and asking the same question, Adam, where are you? Right throughout the Old Testament, God has been asking the same question in different ways. Adam, where are you? Adam, where are you? Right through the New Testament, God continues to ask the question, Adam, where are you? Because God is doing this work of restoration, of renewal, of ordering society again. And it is important that Adam finds his place in God's creation so that God's creation will become all that God created it to do, to be. While God can do it all on him by himself, God has chosen to order society in this particular way, and it is necessary for Adam to find his place. So God continues to ask, even on this Father's Day, Adam, where are you? Adam, where are you? In other words, God is calling for men, fathers, to become kingdom fathers, to find their place in the whole scheme of things, to occupy that place and to become all that God wants him to become. I submit to you again that society will not become all that it can be unless Adam finds his place. You see the mess we're in? You see how messed up our world is, and it's getting worse, it seems, moment by moment. The crime, the violence, the aggression, the anger, the brutality, the disrespect, it all goes back to the question, Adam, where are you? Quickly, just a few things I want to share with us as we put this into perspective. The first thing that I want to say to you is that a kingdom father is not out of place, but in his place. To be a kingdom father is to be in your place. Adam and Eve hid themselves from God, but God called to Adam to find his place, to be back in his place. This doesn't mean the woman's place isn't important, but today we are focusing on the place of Adam. Where are you? As a man, you do not need to make an apology to be in your place. As a man, as a father, you do not need to make an apology in order to stand in your place and to man up. Some of us have done all right, being raised by a single mother. And some have done relatively okay, being raised by another man who is not their father. But that's not how God designed it. We could have been so much better. Our society could have been so much better if Adam, all the Adams, find and occupy their place and fulfill purpose, the purpose for which God has raised up the Adam. And so while we bless God for the men who have stepped up and man up and have taken care of children that are in relationships that they did not give birth to themselves, have not contributed to, but they have man up and they've decided to take care of somebody else's children, that responsibility is still that of Daddy, the Father. And so God today would want me to say to us, find your place. Not just your place, but the place that God has created you for, and the place that God has placed you in to function effectively for the well-being of the whole society. Let me go quickly. Secondly, a kingdom father provides spiritual leadership ordained by God. Note I didn't just say leadership, but I said spiritual leadership ordered by God, ordained by God. What has happened, and the world has been very clever in creating this narrative. We have traded our role of spiritual leader for the title of breadwinner. The devil has made us believe that our role is that of breadwinner, even though that is important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not at all saying that fathers should neglect their responsibility as breadwinner, but that responsibility of breadwinner comes under a broader banner of spiritual leadership. And we have given that up for the title of breadwinner. In Joshua chapter 24, Joshua considered his society. Many had moved away from God and the things of God. He therefore recognized that it was time for him to break ranks and for him to declare who he is and whose he is. Joshua, even though he was the leader of Israel at that time, came and he said to them, look, things are not going well. Things are not going well. Our society is in a mess. And the reason why our society is in a mess is because we have neglected our spiritual leadership. We have neglected who we are under. And so he says, choose this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Even though everybody else seemed to have a different ideology, a different approach to life, Joshua The leader said, look, you guys are going the wrong way, but it is your choice at the end of the day. Choose whom you will serve, but I'm not going down with you. I am not going in that direction with you. I'm not watering down the faith. I'm not choosing things that God forbid. I am choosing for me, but not just for me. I'm choosing that for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. That's not just talk. That is Joshua backing up his actions in the past and in the present. This is Joshua knowing that he has provided the kind of leadership for his family over the years. He therefore knew that they would go with him. And so he says, I am choosing God for me and my family. My brothers and sisters, hear this and hear this well. Fathers, daddies, I'm saying this and I want you to hear me well. You cannot lead your family into peace and prosperity and wellness without God. I'm telling you. That's why Joshua decided, I'm breaking ranks. Enough of this fetting, I'm breaking ranks. Enough of this drinking, I'm breaking ranks. Enough of this bad boy style life, I'm breaking ranks. I now have responsibility. I now have a son that I must teach to be a man. I now have a daughter that I must teach what a good man looks like. As for me and my household, we're going to choose God. Hear this. Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 19 says, this is Moses talking to Israel. He says to them, take care that you do not forget the Lord your God by failing to keep his commandments, his ordinances, and his statutes, which I am commanding you today. Verse 19, it says, on the day that you forget God, you shall surely perish. My brothers and sisters, let's line up what's happening in our world today. The mess, the brokenness, the deceit, the confusion, the quarreling, the warring, and all that's happening. Could it be that Moses has painted for us a picture of where we are? For on the day that you forget God, you shall perish. The man must offer spiritual leadership to his family, to his children. And let me say, finally, that a kingdom father acts as a priest for his children and his family. As a kingdom father is called to the ministry of intercession, constantly intervening on behalf of your family, your children. Look at the gospel that was read for us. This man, Jairus, his daughter was sick to the point of death. Jairus left home and went to search for help. Jairus heard about Jesus who can intervene, who can make things better. And Jairus found Jesus and begged him, please come and help. I'm submitting that a kingdom father knows how to intercede. And therefore, as a kingdom father, you must be a man of prayer. As a kingdom father, you must be a man of deep intercession. As a kingdom father, you must know where it begins with you and where it ends with you, and where God must take over. As a kingdom man, you must know that you are able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that God can give you the strength to do. As a kingdom man, you know that with God, all things are possible. As a kingdom man, you must know that you are not indispensable, that God is. So the psalmist says, I will lift up mine eyes onto the hills, but where will my help come from? My help can't come from the hills. My help comes, help me now, from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. As a kingdom man, you have to be an intercessor. I'm closing with this. Abraham received a covenant from God to be God's person through whom his seed will become God's people. God gave him the mark of the covenant, circumcision. Abraham circumcised himself and his son as a covering for the covenant. But he went further. Abraham also circumcised all the males in his household, including his workers, his servants. They were all under his leadership. And so Abraham did not want to leave anything to chance. And so he basically says, anyone who is going to exist under this covering must carry the mark of the covenant. Anyone who is going to be associated with my home must be a part of the covenant community. I'm speaking now to the young fathers with sons and daughters. Because you are the priests, carrying the mark of the covenant that God has made with you and your family. In relation to your daughters, you cannot let any young man come in unless they are under the covenant. Because the promise, hear me now, the promise is to you and your children and all those who are far off. The promise that God made to Abraham was for him and his descendants. And so if anyone is going to come into your family line, they must be willing to come under the covenant. They must be willing to help to carry on the covenantal relationship. That's why you have to be a priest. So even before the knot is tied, you got to intercede and make sure that it's a proper knot. Am I talking to you, church? Daddies, I'm talking to you. God has called you as a kingdom man to be a priest, to ensure that anyone who comes under your family and comes into your family line is under the covenant. And that your sons are so trained and encouraged that they too can ensure that when they go into somebody else's family line, that they are able to extend the covenant. So you have to be an intercessor. I remember, and some of it from reading, not that I was able to think logically at that time. I know cricket and always used to be in front of the television screen, but later I discovered the whole dynamics. West Indies cricket under the great Clyde Lloyd initially was taken for granted. They were seen as the fun-loving, calypso-singing boys from the islands who you don't take seriously. They just love to make fun. They went to Australia and they got trashed. 5-1. The next year, when India came to the Caribbean, they could not believe that it was the same team because something had changed. Lloyd recognizing what was needed, recognizing that in order to unite these men from these various islands, that there has to be something that is going to draw them together, that they're going to rally around together. And they found that common thing that they needed to rally around, and that was Caribbean pride. And therefore they played for Caribbean pride. And wherever they went, they dominated the game for 20 years. Unfortunately, the guys lost the sense of Caribbean pride. I'm making a point here that God is calling all kingdom fathers to again rally around a common cause, and that is saving our nation. If we rally around this together, a common cause, supporting one another in this common cause, we will turn hell upside down and establish the kingdom of God on earth. May God bless you, dads. Know that you're called to be a kingdom father. You're a kingdom man. God is looking for you. He's calling, where are you? Would you step up today? I'm begging you to step up. Let's step up together and save this society.